Hello world and welcome to my chaos. Today I'll take you through the process of me creating a crosshatch illustration for my Fiverr gig, from order placed to order delivered. This is Mindabble, I'm the Let's Dabble. When an order is placed, I'll take time to review it as soon as possible. Look through all the requirements to see if I need any further information than what has been provided. Let's say I have received an order that looks like this. The buyer is ordering an illustration of a Game Boy in black and white, in a format for easy sharing on Instagram. They've even provided a reference photo for me to use, which is very, very kind of them. So everything here seems to be in perfect order, so I'll message the client and say thank you and that I'll get started on their order. Then I'll move on to the next step, which is I prefer to get the sketch done physically, as it generally feels like I have more control over the lines that way. So, because I have an original reference photo and the client has shown me basically exactly what they want, I'll just go ahead and sketch out from the reference photo. It will come out slightly different because I'm doing this step freehand. When the sketch is finished, I'll take a photo of it, send it off to the client in the chat and ask for any small corrections they want before I move on to the more time-intensive steps. Here, the client tells me they don't want the writing on the Game Boy, so I remove all the writing, take another photo of the sketch, send it off to the client again for approval. This step is kind of the reason I've upped my delivery time on this gig, because many of the buyers on Fiverr come from vastly different time zones than mine, so sometimes during the night is the only time they're gonna see the sketch or see my messages, so there can be a couple of time discrepancies. A slightly longer than needed delivery time makes sure that I keep expectations in place and that I can actually work on the order while I'm physically awake. And mostly I don't need the full delivery time, so that should be a win-win. The buyer takes a look, approves, and then I move on to the next step. Opening up Photoshop, I make sure to create a canvas that meets the requirements of whatever the client wants. Here we're talking about a picture that needs to be easily shareable on Instagram, so I make it 4000 times 4000 pixels. I then insert my sketch and get to drawing. This gig includes all source files, so as I'm going along I make sure to name all my layers and sort them for easy overviews. To make my own life easier regarding possible corrections, I also make sure to put all the different elements into their own folders. Outlines gets a layer, hatching gets a layer, and defining lines all gets a layer, sorted into their respective folders. When all this is done, I create a solid background layer and then mask out the background so just the lines and the fill is left. Thus, the illustration is ready for Okay, so this is not really the most exciting step, hence the explosions. But having a vector version of the image is great if you need the illustration for other applications. It can be scaled indefinitely and can act as a path, just to name a few. I'm doing this in Illustrator using the tracing tool, but to get a proper trace I need to configure the settings for each specific illustration. Settings that work with one image may work completely different with another. So I take my time to really zone into what makes the final output look the best. When I've reached a good trace, I expand it and go over everything again just to weed out all of the small little squigglies and stray lines I may find. I also try to simplify the pathways as much as possible so I can finish up with a vector file that is as small of a file size as possible. And when I'm happy with that, it's time for I scan the original sketch and make sure to name it after the order and that it's the original scan. I then export a JPEG and a PNG from the Photoshop file, making sure they meet the requirements, and then name them after the order and their file extension. Then I export a JPEG, a PNG, an EPS, and an SVG from the Illustrator file. Again, making sure the requirements are met for every file that applies and that they are named correctly. Lastly, all the files are collected into a folder for easy delivery. I deliver the files and mark the Photoshop file as the source file. Now all that is left is to wait for the client to look through everything and either accept the order or request revisions. Of course, I hope there is none and they're happy with the final result, but of course I'm happy to make any corrections that needs to be done. And that's pretty much it. I hope you found this very interesting, at least a little bit, maybe even a bit useful. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you want a crosshatch illustration, the link to my Fiverr gig is in the description, as well as a link to different stock sites where I have my already finished crosshatch stock illustrations ready for purchase. And I guess that's gonna be it for me today. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.